It's podcadzo.
Why is there a click
We gotta
track
do
playing?
it to a click, dude.
I don't wanna.
All right, we're recording.
All right. Well, cool. Oh, I don't have a beer.
Get a beer.
Okay.
You can put the mic down.
Where? I know.
I'm saying I'll hold the fort down while you're young. It's
Beers. Can you get me one? Oh, right there. You want one?
over there. Yeah, take it, Cores, if you want one.
She can't.
Do you have a gluten intolerance too?
She's got a just only when it comes to beer.
That's pretty lame.
It's pretty fucking stupid. You're getting warm. Is she? Yeah. Thank you. Ah, yeah. All right. Well.
All right, let me check something.
Cheers.
Cheers, dude. First live pod.
To being gay.
That was really fun. To being gay.
Yeah, that was really
I'm
fun.
drunk. I'm gay.
I think we're good. We got everything
I
we
think
need.
we are good. I'm just doing one last check.
No, I meant like we're done here.
Oh, the podcast is over?
We got all the footage,
Okay.
all the laughs.
We have
been
content
had.
now.
We've made one content.
Dude, I forget how I haven't used Logic in a while. Here we go. I'm a Reaper boy now.
Why do you use Logic now?
Well, I'm only using it because I wanted to use this Apollo interface.
Okay.
Which does not work well with my
With-
PC. It says it's supposed to have PC support. And they have a driver and everything, but it just
It's a
clicks
lie?
and pops galore. Yeah, it's basically unusable with the PC. So I use it with my Mac, and the DAW I have on my Mac is Logic. Okay,
Cool.
we're good.
All right.
You
Well-
too.
Yes.
I'm so primed for this conversation.
We had to do this one together in the room because
it's that important.
it's that important that we both needed to be here for it.
Yeah. So I listened to Boy, October, War, and Unforgettable Fire today while working. Those albums are fucking amazing, dude. It's been a while since I've listened to... I have Unforgettable Fire in my vinyl rotation, pretty heavy. So I listen to that one a lot. But it's been a while since I've listened to the first three albums all the way through.
What edition vinyl do you have?
It's just it's nothing special.
repress?
Yeah, some repress. I bought it
Fucking
used in the
fake-ass
shop.
fan.
Yeah, I know. I'm lacking on the U2 vinyl.
I have nothing.
But,
I have
yeah.
literally not a single U2 record.
Yeah,
So,
I
you're
just
better
have
than
the
me.
used Unforgettable Fire. I've been tempted to buy the box sets before. I've seen some pretty cool box sets.
I don't really see too much. I mean, I think I always see like some collector's edition of Joshua Tree at a
Yeah.
record store. Maybe from time to time I'll see like a newer U2 record like Songs of Experience or Songs of Innocence, but I don't really see U2 at record stores that much. Maybe it's always sold out.
So, people are just coming in all day.
People are like,
Where's
where's
the
the U2? I don't
Y'all
think
have
that's
Joshua
what's
Tree?
happening. Exactly.
Y'all have Octone Baby.
Well, I came into this kind of with an opposite approach of I didn't listen to any U2, you know, today or yesterday or really any time recently. But I still consider myself a fan, like a pretty... Fan's a strong word because I definitely have a pretty strong
You're a fan.
opinion about some of their things that they've done lately.
That makes you
but
more of a fan. That you
I
care
think so.
enough to.
Yeah, I think I used to know a dude. He was a family friend who was like a diehard U2 fan, and he was like, I specifically remember No Line on the Horizon came out, and everyone that I talked to, my mom, who's like a huge U2 fan, and my dad, who was a U2 fan, and like other people that like the band, they all thought that album was shit when it came out. And then there was this dude who was like, nah, it's so good. Like, it's their best work. All this bullshit. And it's like, you have to be able to have the power to step back and truly analyze if it's good or not.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, what's your opinion of that album?
Despite all of the hate, remain a fan.
Why?
All the way through. I think they're good songs. I think it's good songs, man.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, I know, like, Get On Your Boots is pretty good.
Yeah. I love that era of U2 also.
I think it's like their least significant era.
Yeah, but I can't explain why I like it. Let's step back for a second.
Let's go back to the
Before
very
we
beginning.
Get to it, and, yeah.
Sure. So
I don't want to revisit that with some more context.
The reason why this episode exists now, and the reason why we felt like we needed to make it, was because we're both lifelong U2 fans, in the sense that we grew up with it. It influenced us from an early age. They were definitely pop culture icons, which you like those pop culture icons. I would say
I'm a fan of pop culture icons.
Bono and like the whole, just U2 universe was the first really like universe that I got into. So I figured we should just start at the very beginning, and I wanted to know at what age really you got into U2, what got you into U2, and then really if you can remember even when they started influencing you on like a musical level, when you started noticing that you were like writing shit that sounded like Edge riffs, because there's no disputing that you write some Edge riffs for sure.
I can't say exactly when I got into U2, or I guess when I first heard of them. They were just always around. My dad's a big classic rock guy. Classic rock radio was always on. He was always playing CDs, and U2 was always in rotation. And I remember this distinctly. We were driving in my neighborhood, and a U2 song came on. I don't remember which U2 song, but my dad pointed at the radio. He was like, "U2's a good band." He literally just said that to me. He's like, "I like U2." And then I was impressionable and young at that age. I was like, "I like U2 also." But they were around before then. And so from that point, they're a band like I was pretty casually aware of. I was still pretty young at this point, so wasn't like super into music and wasn't going in deep on any groups yet. And then when I was 13, my dad started the famed U2 tribute band called Tribute 2.
Tribute 2. We need a moment of silence for the boys in Tribute 2.
They're doing their thing now in the Doors jam.
It's the same guys?
It's the same drummer, my dad, and singer.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. So he sounds like...
Dude, Shane.
Both of them?
Shout out Shane Kuhn, if you ever heard this.
Shane Kuhn.
Shane Kuntz? Kuhn. Fuck. Shout out Shane. Shane is an amazing vocalist. He sounded exactly like Bono in the U2 tribute
He does
band,
a good Jim Morrison.
and he does a great Jim Morrison in the Doors band. He's a talented guy. Anyways, and like this wasn't just some casual U2 tribute band. They were serious. Like they were playing a lot of big paid gigs. They were like getting attention statewide, perhaps even nationally, as sounding a lot like U2. They put on a really good show. And that corresponds with the time I was like getting really interested in music and bands, and I was starting to play guitar more. I'd known how to play guitar because my dad was a guitar player, but when you're a kid, I've had problems practicing, and there's other stuff I want to do. But around that time, I started to get more serious about the guitar. So I ended up doing sound for my dad's band. That's kind of how I learned to do sound. I was like helping them set up at every show. And then I was learning to play guitar, and it just somehow creeped into my psyche, partly because I learned a lot of U2 riffs from my dad, and partly because that music was always around. And then I think another significant thing is it was the first time I started to mess around with effects and had like a pedal board set up, and I had a cool delay pedal, and I kind of based my entire sound around this delay like the Edge had done, where I was like really effects heavy. But I never was like, I want to sound like the Edge. I want to write a song that sounds U2.
It's just a byproduct of
Exactly.
playing with a lot of delay.
And the more, and well, even without delay, I'm like, oh yeah, this is an Edge part for sure. And the more I try to get away from it, the more I just sound like the Edge, I think. not comparing myself to him, but
the
it's in the
influence
same arena.
is in there. I think the main thing is that Edge writes guitar parts that are like uplifting, like universally. I mean, he's got some heavier things going on, but for the most part, it's just like, what's like the prettiest, most like grandiose kind of just like huge thing that I can do in the song.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's kind of where you kind of take from him in your guitar playing, is just that there's a lot of bigness, a lot of like really uplifting things that always goes to like a really happy place, which is cool because you do it in your own way, but it's still apparent what you are influenced by in a good way.
I think it might be our Celtic backgrounds, honestly, because obviously Ireland, and I come from a heavy Scottish background, and there's an emphasis in songwriting there that's very melodic and joyful and kind of anthemic, and that's definitely what the Edge did. It was all very major scale, and
they were very anthemic from the beginning.
Yeah,
even when they had like their early roots in like punk or whatever, they were still writing big songs.
And I think there's also, I was thinking about this today actually. I was in the YouTube page and was reading about their religious background in the YouTube Wikipedia page, and I'd never really considered it before, but there's something kind of religious or spiritual about the way the Edge plays, I think, especially on the earlier albums, where it's very like choral, maybe is the word I'm looking for, or
yeah. Well, and I
it's
think
like something you hear in a church.
Yeah, everything, especially in the earlier stuff, but it goes throughout their whole career. Everything Bono sings about and all their messages are like very, like uniform, unite the people, get the people together, make a statement. And there's a lot of, I think, religious influence to the songs that he sings, like lyrically as well, but that can only be translated in guitar playing if you're a good guitar player.
Yeah.
If you
wanting know how to use your
support,
tools.
Yeah, wanting to support your front band and stuff.
Yeah, and that's something I think Edge initially came under fire for, was like Edge guitar parts. He's just playing like major chords with a bunch of effects on it.
Yeah,
but it sounds amazing and it serves the song and their hits.
At the end of the day, like it speaks for itself.
Yeah,
exactly.
So how did you get into U2?
So
let me say real quick.
Yeah,
it was so refreshing when we first started playing music together and talked about U2 that you were also like a dude into U2.
Well, and
because it's something you have to hide sometimes. Like
most of the time,
especially amongst musicians.
And people our age,
people our age.
It's hard finding anyone who is within 5-7 years of us that truly appreciates and likes what U2 has done. I'll go back to the beginning for myself. Basically, it was kind of the same for me. It was something, their music was just always around when I was young. They were like my mom's favorite band, like hands down, probably for like a decade, if not longer, where it was just like we would listen to them in the car, we'd listen to them at home, we'd watch their live shows, we'd watch their music videos. Like she was obsessed. And I just started having an interest because it was the first music that I was really exposed to for like prolonged periods of time. And obviously the characters of the musicians were all very interesting. Like I remember being young and like really idolizing Bono for being like just a true rock star.
I still idolize Bono.
Yeah, I mean, in some ways I do too. I think that he has to have a certain fearlessness to what he does because there's definitely a lot of hate that's been thrown at him and he's definitely aware of it. And I think we've recently learned that he's like somewhat self-critical in the sense that he's not a huge fan of his own voice. He doesn't really like his singing. He's not a big fan of U2's music, like all these things. Yeah. But anyway, I just started really paying attention to their music at a young age and understanding, like, I think for the first time what the point of like most music is, in the sense that it's supposed to make you feel good, it's supposed to drive you to feel certain emotions, and it's supposed to also connect you to the real world in certain ways through like other people's storytelling. And then, I mean, I started playing drums. Larry Mullen is definitely by no means like a fantastic drummer. There's not a whole lot of technicality there, but I think that's why I wanted to start playing him from an early age, was because it had a lot of feeling, it had a lot of emotion behind it, but it wasn't technically complex, and I could play it from a relatively young age.
And
so then, I'm just learning. Yeah, it serves the song, which is what a good drummer should always do. So then at that point, I'm learning Larry Mullen songs on drums, really just getting into, I would say, like the 90s to early 2000s era of U2 heavily. Like, I was really into Octung Baby, really into Zooropa. I was definitely relatively into All That You Can't Leave Behind. Mm-hmm. And then, you know, when I was in second grade is when How to Dismantle an Atomic Bomb comes out. And I just remember, again, my mom being the obsessive person she was, we were just listening to it all the time.
That was probably my first exposure to U2, now that I think about it, was Vertigo.
Yeah, and I mean, I think, you know, they were still definitely very heavily in the pop culture sphere at that time, so you could say, like, man, that Vertigo song by U2 is pretty good, and people would actually be like, it is pretty good.
I like that song.
Yeah, it is a good song. And people were talking about the music video. Obviously, the whole album was very acclaimed, I would say. I think everyone was talking about it for a while after it came out. And I wound up going to see the show when they did that tour with my mom. And she tied a string around my wrist to her wrist, so we were anchored to each other.
Oh, that's cute.
And it was like 2 feet, so I was literally just on her fucking waist the entire show. But that show opened so many doors for me, where I truly fell in love with the aspect of live performance. Mm-hmm. And U2 is very... I mean, they put on a show. I don't want to say they're theatrical, but they definitely put on a huge fucking show, where it's like they're changing outfits, there's lights and, you know, displays, and there's screens everywhere. I remember, you know, songs where there's props actually popping out of the stage and shit's happening. Bono's like running around going fucking crazy. I remember also really being drawn to Adam Clayton for some reason when I was that age, just thinking like his presence was so commanding in a way. He just didn't give a fuck what was happening around him. He just did his own thing, and I was like, holy shit.
I always equated that to like how The Who was live, because I always thought The Who was one of the most, not that I ever saw them, but just from watching videos, one of the most amazing like dynamic bands to see live. And I think it was a similar thing where everyone was so performant and putting on such a show, but you just had John Entwistle then holding it down.
Yeah,
and you need that frame of reference
looking
on
ahead,
stage.
Yeah, being prepared for the next thing, and definitely it was like refreshing to see that up against like Bono, who's just, you know, a character pretty much for the entire show. He's just rolling from performance to performance. So anyway, seeing that show, I think, opened up a whole universe for me of just being like, wow, playing live shows, being a live drummer, that's like what I want to do. I think that's the show that really gave that to me. Granted, it was my first show, so it probably could have been any show, and I would have had the same kind of like just emotional eye-opening experience, but it happened to be U2, and it happened to be behind an album that I like loved as a kid. So every time they played a song from the album, or they played a song that I thought was a banger, I was just like, holy shit. I remember they played The Fly, which at the time was like the heaviest song I had ever heard in my life, and so I was just like losing my mind.
Was Bono still doing the Fly persona then?
He wasn't wearing the glasses or anything. He wasn't.
That was more like early 90s,
I think,
wasn't it?
yeah, that was like when that album came out. Maybe he did it for the tour afterwards too, but no, he was. I think he was playing guitar for it, which he can't supposedly he can't play guitar anymore since he had that bicycle accident.
Right.
So I feel kind of lucky that I got to see a show where he was playing guitar. I wound up seeing U2 like a decade later when they did or not a decade later, but like 7 years later when they did the 360 tour.
Yeah.
And they were at Mile High. And by that point, I was already not obsessed with U2 anymore. I still kind of liked them, but I, again, was not a fan of the album that they were promoting for that tour. And I remember being at that show just feeling like they were really just a greatest hits band kind of at that point.
Yeah.
And I've kind of felt that way ever since. I think at most of their shows, really, they're just playing a lot of their greatest hits, which is fine. That's what the fans want to hear. But I feel grateful that I was at a point in my life where, yeah, the first time I saw them, it wasn't like that. It was really just, they're like a touring rock band that was, backing an album, and it was an album that I loved, and it gave me the stoke for like a lifetime to be like, holy shit, I want to do what they do in some scale.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Comparatively, like, especially the way bands are now where you have so many like legacy rock bands still touring, like seeing U2 in 2002, about 22 years into their career, is like still kind of early in a band of that prestige.
Yeah, because now they're on their 40th year.
Yeah.
And it's like, one or two of their last like 3 major tours have just been anniversary tours. Like they did the Joshua Tree tour, which I think it's cool that they have the ability and like the fan base really to like be able to go back and just visit like an album in full like that for an entire tour, like a world tour. I think not a lot of bands really have that kind of pull or like that consistent fan base. But yeah, I mean, when you think about it, that was like 35 years ago. And a lot of those songs, not only people still listen to and like, but a lot of the songs still have like an incredibly relevant like message and like urgency and communication that like the world is looking for, I feel like right now.
Yeah. So I think I would definitely classify you as more of an Achtung Baby guy, and I'm more of a War guy myself. I feel like we've talked about this before, and that's our difference in U2
and
fanship.
So I think what I'm always able to say to myself to make myself feel better about liking U2 is just like really, I like their, experimental phase where, it wasn't, the music wasn't experimental by any means. It's not like they were playing prog rock, doing crazy runs or anything like that. But from a studio perspective, they were definitely introducing a lot of crazy ideas to their production. And I specifically want to say Larry Mullen's snare sound on a lot of the Achtung Baby songs, I think is like why I kind of like weird snare sounds now. Like he did a lot of unconventional drum tunings, and he did a lot of kind of like post-production tweaking with his drums, where I think he was making them intentionally like sharper than what was common back then. And you see like it's obviously a different universe, but like Lars Ulrich's snare on that 01 Metallica album, Saint Anger, is like falls into that same universe where it's just like pangy, really loud snare that just fills like the whole mix. And I think that like, yeah, Larry Mullen was doing that in like the mid 90s at a time when like people weren't really paying attention to making drum mixes like insanely crazy or anything. And I mean, I don't know how much of that was actually Larry Mullen, but he was the performer, so I give him at least a little of the credit. And I just think it's interesting also that they had this whole like experimental kind of like art pop phase like in the middle of their career. And then they fully transitions out of it and moved on to something else. And like it's an entire era of U2's career that I feel like to this day isn't really talked about too much. It's not like looked back on. Like, I mean, U2 fans look back on it well, but the general public isn't like anticipating any huge like Octung Baby reunion or like anniversary tour or whatever it might be. And I don't think U2's really looking back on that moment in their career is like the most important, but I think it's probably my favorite.
Yeah. It was a pinnacle moment. And who knows, maybe they might look, I mean, like, because of the 90s, the 90s being just such a huge era for music for many reasons, but then U2 still being relevant as like already sort of a incredible like legacy rock bands.
Yeah.
It was a very special time, I think, to have a band like that.
And
around.
I think at a lot of times when like those legacy rock bands in the mid 90s were really just honing in or like focusing on what their specific sound was, U2 threw that out the window and they were like, we're just going to do something completely fucking different. Yeah. And they were inspired by a lot of stuff that I think like people were inspired by, but people weren't necessarily like writing it into their music on like a large scale. And I think it's cool too that, you know, U2 had built such a huge fan base by this point already, and they had such a like reliant expectation of their sound from people. And then they also kind of didn't really have regard for any of that either. They were just like, we're going to do what inspires us right now. And the fan base just followed them through that. And I think it just goes to show in a lot of ways Edge being the songwriter that he is, not wanting to be stagnant for too long.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Continuing to push the envelope. Speaking of Larry Mullen a second ago, when I was listening to Boy, October, War, Today, what struck me is how present the drums are in the mix. The drums are really like the centerpiece of everything. And honestly, like the vocals and guitar are kind of sparse. It's really like drums and bass.
Yeah.
Which I guess makes sense because that was a common production style, I'd say, for some post-punk stuff.
Yeah, I think really what it boils down to is just the fact that they were starting off as like a post-punk band or just like UK punk, whatever. But I think the coolest part about all of that is just really how untamed and like not held back Larry Mullen's drums are on most of it.
Yeah,
I think
it sounds
it's really
so
just
live. And
you're listening to someone figure out their instrument. Really, like they definitely by no means were like proficient musicians or like solid at what they were doing when they started recording. They were still figuring it out in a lot of ways. I think in a lot of ways too, I'm sure I'm not the only one to say this, but I see a lot of parallels between like early U2 and early Beatles where it's like you can hear an evolution in the playing and the performance even just from like song to song on the album. Like War, for example, the back half of it finishes like I think way more like thought out and just like ideologically complete than like the first half, which is just like a like Call to Arms kind of like post-punk album.
Yeah, I was just so moved like listening to Boy today though for the first time in a while, because you can tell it's just a bunch of guys like with a lot of talent who haven't honed in on it yet, but with like so much passion and like a lot of creative energy and a lot to say.
They were
like,
gonna
trying
figure
to figure
it out.
Yeah, and like you can hear in that album like everything that they would become. You're like, oh yeah, this makes sense listening to this. And Boy, it's been a while since I listened to it. It's such a great album. I love the sound of it. Like it sounds so live. Like I said, you can picture them in some recording studio doing it, just figuring out what their sound is like. And, Bono figuring out his vocal style. But it's like remarkably almost fully formed, I feel like, early on. Like, obviously he wasn't the Bono we now know, but
I think he knew what he wanted to do stylistically, and then he just had to like refine it.
Yeah, his skill caught up to his ambitions.
Yeah. Which is cool to see. I think, again, for all the shit that he catches, he really did figure out at a young age like what he wanted his trajectory to be, and he stuck with it.
Yeah. And that takes so much resolve to go for something so ambitious as like his like impassioned open throat, like very theatrical singing style.
Yeah.
And to take heat for it, but still be like, this is me.
Yeah. I'm going to make sure that this is the best it can be.
Yeah.
Whether or not that's what people want.
Yeah. Exactly. Because he could have easily. I watched the a Joy Division documentary a while ago, and it had a bunch of commentary from Bono in it, and I think he felt kind of threatened by Joy Division and Ian Curtis early on, and so he could have easily like adopted a much less like genuine theatrical put yourself out there form of singing and go for a more like guarded, and this isn't a diss of Ian Curtis at all. I love Joy Division. He's one of my favorite singers of all time. But his is a very cool, ironic, detached way of singing. So like you could imagine if Bono was like feeling pressure to be like Joy Division, they'd be like, no, I can't put myself out there like that. I gotta sing like Ian Curtis or somebody else. So it's yeah, it's just he was obviously just a young kid with like an amazing singing voice who went for it.
Yeah.
And I think it's cool.
I think, yeah, at the end of the day, it's one of those kind of stories of just like, I don't want to be cheesy, but like fate, where it's like, they realized when they were young kids, and especially once they had known each other and started playing together, that it was like this is what they wanted to do, and they were just going to make it work.
Yeah.
And they were happy with, playing clubs, just touring around, the UK and Ireland and not doing anything more than that. I think it was definitely like a surprise to everyone when they got as big as they did. And I think that also there's early interviews of them kind of, especially Bono, just like bashing on U2 and just kind of being like, yeah, we don't really know what we're doing.
Yeah.
We're just kids. We're figuring it out, like whatever. But I think that insecurity just comes from, at the time, there was so many high caliber musicians around, and they were not technically proficient, which just made it even crazier when they started getting big within their own scene and then breaking into other scenes. And then,
But it's amazing when a band does learn to play their instruments together. Like
definitely. I think it creates a cohesion between members that's like unbreakable.
Totally. I think a great example of that is like Sex Pistols, who couldn't have been less musically proficient and let me qualify that in a second. But playing with anybody else, they, were very basic musicians. Steve Cook was a good drummer, and I'm spacing on before Sid Vicious, the original bass player. I'm sorry for forgetting his name, but I think they were solid. But just the fact that they learned how to play together created that like amazing sound that you hear on Nevermind the Bollocks.
Yeah.
And like that can never be recreated by anybody else as genuinely as it is there. And that's definitely like what I sensed listening to those early U2 albums today. I was like, just dudes like figuring it out together.
Totally.
And it's moving for sure. Should we talk a little bit about their history? Get into a little bit, their formation?
Sure.
Talk about formation. I'm going to grab another beer real quick.
Okay, so, full disclosure here on this part, I definitely didn't want to spend too much time talking about U2's history or their formation or their early years or anything, because it's been done a million times. And if you really want to know, you can just go find like one of a million articles that have been written about them, or watch an interview. There's like 60 Minutes pieces that have been done about them. I mean, they're so widely covered.
You don't talk about it?
But no, I think it's definitely worth mentioning a couple things here along the U2 timeline, which is we did just talk about this, but the fact that they started so early, all the way back in 76, 77, something like that.
70,
and they
77, I thought.
Yeah, 77.
Yeah.
And they they were kids when they started, which is not unlike a lot of other bands that tend to get really famous later on. I mean, there's like, again, the Beatles were like this. There you have Red Hot Chili Peppers. You have so many bands that live on in culture like forever that start out as just kids that want to just, play music and have some sort of goal of just making a life of playing music. So I think the interesting to mention about the early years is just how politically driven it was in a lot of ways. They were singing a lot about American politics from an early time. And I think they were fascinated by American pop culture from an early time. I think, obviously, Bono was inspired by, like a lot of 80s new wave. In the 70s, I think they were all inspired by a lot of like blues, American jazz, American blues type stuff.
Yeah, and what's fascinating is they were like born into and formed around like a very violent civil war in Ireland, like experiencing a lot of horrors with the IRA. And, obviously that would like famously be sung about in Sunday Bloody Sunday and stuff. But it is interesting thing about, since they are such a, pop culture phenomenon, that they did like form and were around in a very violent time in Ireland.
Yeah, and that they did very much focus on social politics and making social statements from, I think, a very early point in their career.
Yeah, dude, have you seen the picture of Bono and George Bush together? Speaking of,
I mean, yeah, I think so.
It's nothing special. I just got a real cake. Just Bono with his sunglasses on.
Bono with the glasses,
and looking amazing like a rock star. And George Bush looked just so happy, to
starstruck.
Be shaking. Yeah,
at that point, I mean, one, and not to derail this, but yeah, when you're a politician like George Bush in the 2000s who's dealing with scandal and turmoil, when someone like Bono is willing to shake your hand, it's great publicity. Yeah. I really was like, Bono was such a social figure that people would if you're Bush, you're thinking like, if I get this man to shake my hand, then like my approval rating will go up.
Presidents change all the time. There's only one Bono.
That's a really good way of putting it. So yeah, I don't think we need to dwell too much on the early shit. They were founded by Larry Mullen. He was the first dude in the band. Yeah.
Cool formation. And they won a talent show early on, which gave them some motivation, and it won them their first opportunity to record anything.
And I think it's also worth noting early on here that their first like international single doesn't chart. I don't think their second single charts either. So they're not necessarily like an overnight sensation.
Yeah, it's crazy that I Will Follow, at least I consider I Will Follow one of their greatest songs.
Again, and like a cornerstone song.
Yeah, cornerstone. That was maybe because that was always a pivotal moment in my dad's tribute to sets when they played I Will Follow. And people would go crazy for it. But I mean, it's crazy that was on their first album.
I think it's great. Yeah, I mean, I remember as a kid definitely listening to like I Will Follow, and I'm drawing blanks on other songs on that record, but really just thinking like how I didn't think it was U2, how it doesn't sound like U2. Mm-hmm. And not really connecting dots on like what's similar between that and other stuff until a lot later on. But I think there's like themes that they find really early that they stick with for like their entire career.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And then I mean, we could talk about we probably should talk about The Unforgettable Fire a little bit. When does that come out? Like 1983, 1984? Come on, boy.
Say 85 was Unforgettable Fire.
I'm gonna say 84.
Where does it say on there where it came out?
This is.
Oh, it was 84. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. So yeah, this album.
You're the Smiths formed.
Which is interesting because I hear people oftentimes talk about how Bono had to have obviously been influenced by Morrissey, but
It's the other way around.
yeah, I don't think it was that way. And then you have in the 2000s people saying bands like Coldplay are just U2 like rip-off bands with their debut and their second album, but like
Yeah.
I also
All
never
that
really got
means
that
is
too much either.
Coldplay is a good band who has a
Coldplay-
lot of big hits like U2 does.
Also from the other side of the
they're
pond.
the other side of the pond. And they have a charismatic frontman.
Barely. He
I
was
think
like,
early on.
yeah, he was viewed as like weird
Yeah,
though.
na-
Everyone was like,
yeah,
what the
he
fuck
was
is up with
weird.
this guy?
But in a way that worked. He was a commanding presence
Yeah.
in one way.
Sold
like
tickets.
Bono.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
And I'm someone who doesn't usually identify as a Coldplay fan. So this is me going out on a limb and defending Coldplay.
I mean,
and standing up. I know you're very much a Coldplay
I'm
fan.
a
You
hardcore
literally have a
Coldplay fan.
Coldplay poster up the stairs.
It's
there.
an X and Y poster.
Yeah.
You like it?
I like that a lot.
They're all like sitting in a row next to each other, and it's like, I mean, it's probably the single gayest thing I have
It's
in my
super
house.
gay, dude. I like it a lot.
It's pretty
really
good.
cute though. It's really cute.
But anyway, so I think Unforgettable Fire is really the album that plants U2
Yeah.
as internationally being like a pretty big deal.
Totally. That's when they broke into like arena rock for sure. But I think War had a really big. It like Boy
reached a lot of
and
people.
October managed to grasp enough people where I think War was a like very highly anticipated album.
Maybe Rattle and
And they
Hum is
delivered.
just where they really start to put together all the pieces in my mind, where they
Yeah.
start to have like bigger performances,
I think that's when they become
more
like
of
the
a
U2 we know now.
character type. Yeah. Bono changing jackets and shit, changing hats.
Yeah.
He doesn't have the glasses yet at this point, but
the glaucoma's not too bad.
the
yet.
glaucoma's still laying low.
Is that
Do you think that's true?
I
Do you
think he just
think that-
likes wearing
I
glasses
think he
and was
just-
sick of taking shit for it.
Yeah.
And he looks amazing. We need someone like Bono
Just-
wearing glasses.
Just own up to
indoors
it though.
in public.
Just say, yeah, I wear the glasses because it's part of my look.
'Cause it
It's
looks
part of
fucking
what
dope,
made me
and
fucking
I'm
more
Bono.
famous than your
Yeah.
ass. Just say it.
Yeah.
But whatever. Anyway, so we have Unforgettable Fire. They go on like a world tour after that, and I think they are successful across the board there. Like,
And Rattle and Hum was big because there was a film component to it as well.
they released
And
a
really
film
let
with it,
People let them inside the camp.
and it was very intimate. The
Yeah,
whole
it
idea
was.
of it was very honest, very like peeled back. Uh-oh.
That camera's dead. That's all right. I knew it would die eventually. That one's a short battery life.
Anyway, yeah, I guess really at this point we're looking at Joshua Tree, which I know this is jumping ahead slightly, but I would say Joshua Tree is probably viewed by many as their best album.
Yeah, it's the essential U2 album. No debate. It's not my favorite, but I say it's the essential U2 album.
If you're going to start somewhere
yeah.
and you want to start somewhere that has historical relevance, it would be there for sure. So yeah, they released that, and they also record it in America,
Mhm.
right? Joshua Tree,
Mhm.
which is their first time recording a project over here. And then, I mean, they really make a leap here. There's Rattle and Hum, which is just live performances of songs from Joshua Tree and Unforgettable Fire, right?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
So that's
And I think, wasn't there like a single with Rattle and Hum that wasn't on? I feel like there might be
probably.
a songs unreleased. I
Probably.
don't know. I'd have to check the track list.
But
of
yeah,
Rattle and Hum.
never really been super into Rattle and Hum. I think there was a point in time when my mom would have said that was like the most important U2 album, or like her
Yeah.
favorite one. I don't know if that's still true now, but it goes pretty much straight into like their weird phase is what I call it in the 90s, which is Octung Baby, Zoo, the Zoo tour, and then Zooropa. And Octung Baby, I'm pretty sure, if I remember correctly, when it comes out, it gets just a fuckload of criticism because
Yeah.
it's so different, and everyone's like, what the fuck are you guys doing? I think the expectation at this point was that U2 is just going to be one of those staple bands regularly releasing, albums that were linear in a timeline. People could just rely on it.
Yeah. It was like, we put you in a box already. Stay in the box. We're comfortable with you in the box.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then they go
say,
and do some
"No.
shit like this, which
We're artists.
it was, I think, another leap towards them really putting a lot into their visual performance. They have a lot of props for this tour. Lots of...
They did the huge TV wall then, right?
I think Zoo TV is the one where they have the cars. And then
yes.
the
Okay,
Zoo
that's what I'm thinking
Station
of,
is
yeah.
when they have all the TVs.
TVs, yeah.
But yeah, so anyway, they just have a fuckload of shit on stage with them. They're wearing weird clothes. I think Bono starts to wear the glasses at this point. The glaucoma's creeping in.
And this is around the invention of his fly persona too.
Yes.
Which was like a satirical rock star character that he invented for his onstage persona. I think partly to like defend him from being too sincere and genuine then, because they were so under so much criticism.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think he wanted to, have like a thin layer of separation between him as a person and him as a performer. But also, I think he was trying to really make some comments on specifically like American pop culture at this time and how just focused on glitz and glamour it really is, and the show over the substance of what's happening. But yeah, I think they start to introduce the concept in mainstream music of having like dance influence in some songs, and really just leaning super heavy into lots of production trickery and tricks in the studio that you can't necessarily recreate live. And then there's the pop album, which I think we've probably never talked about. How do you feel about that?
It's something I've just skipped over.
You've never listened to it?
No, I've listened to it, definitely. But I've never spent serious time with it. I've never like considered it too heavily as being like an important part of their discography.
It's interesting.
Today actually I almost put on pop because I was like, I want to prepare for this episode. I was going through their discography. I'm very familiar with everything up until pop and pretty familiar with the stuff afterwards. But that was kind of the breaking point. But I was like, I'd much rather listen to the first 3 albums again than pop.
Put it on sometime.
Yeah.
Because yes, it might not be their best album. It might not even be their second or third best album. It might be their worst album. But I think in a lot of ways it is the most different. I have an interesting relationship with that album just because, again, growing up, my mom was the main arbiter of what we listened to as far as the albums. So we always skipped over that one. It was kind of same. And when I asked her, like, what's the deal with pop? Like, why have we never listened to that? She's like, oh, it's terrible. It's their worst one.
Yeah.
Which, again, the family friend homie, if you asked him how he felt about pop, he's like, oh, it's fantastic. I love that record. But if you ask him to say, like, why? He's like, it's great. It's U2. It's a U2 record. It's fantastic, which wasn't exactly enough for me. So I never really listened to it. But then a few years ago, I was like, well, it's time to just patch the hole. I want to know everything about their discography.
And that's the difference between being a casual fan and a passion fan. So a casual fan accepts everything as, it's U2. It's good. I like it. I like U2. And passion fan has to really think about each album alone and what it means in the bigger picture.
I'll take a step back because, I can't say that I give that much of a shit about like Songs of Innocence and Songs of Experience to go and be like, I need to know like what these records are really about. I don't give a fuck what they're about. But in the terms of, being fascinated by their 90s discography and then also being pretty into their 2000s discography, I was just like, well, why is this album the one that, it's right in the middle. It's not like a bookend album. It's not closing anything out. It's really in between, like, two pretty pivotal moments of their career. So I listened to it, and I think it's just, like super different. It doesn't really revolve around, I feel like, the same kind of concepts and principles that 99% of the U2 music revolves around. It's not like glaringly uplifting. There's not just like huge sparkly shit all over it. There's like pretty dark moments. There's moments that are like pretty much entirely artificial, like no organic instrumentation. The songwriting structure is not necessarily conventional, like verse chorus type shit. And yeah, I think like in a weird way, because Pop comes out in
94.
Yeah, it comes out in like the mid 90s.
Oh no, 95.
95.
Yeah, it was Pop.
So it comes out like 5 years before you have like the Dust Brothers and the Chemical Brothers like doing like drum track heavy, like kind of like
it was
repetitive, like loopy music, but they were kind of doing that already.
Music,
dance music, which I think, it is interesting to see you two at least try to do it.
I'm gonna listen to Pop tonight.
Try it out.
I'll try it out. What if someone told you that their favorite U2 album was Songs of Innocence?
See, I don't think that's possible.
I would think that was dope. I mean, like, your favorite, that's sick.
Why?
You like The Miracle of Joey Ramone? That's like your favorite U2 song?
Oh my God, bro. It's just like... So tell me something good about that album that you
clear,
genuinely...
I'm not saying it's my favorite U2 album.
But what's something actually good about it for real?
It's hard to pin down anything specifically. I think why I like it is because people were hating on it so much for many reasons, kind of understandably so. But I was
it's
like,
fucking terrible.
I was like, guys, these songs are okay. Like,
it's like,
that bad.
There's so many bands out there where you have no problem just calling it like it is, saying, "Hey guys, it's time to throw in the towel. Like it's time to hang it up. You had a good run.
Yeah.
Do anniversary tours, do, throwback tours, whatever. But
I
just
think
call it a day for going into the studio and writing new songs. It's fine. Like, it's not a bad thing. It's just, you guys had your run. It's time to step out of the way.
Don't put it on everyone's iPhone. Is that what you're getting to?
Yeah, well, I was going to try to save for a linear timeline order.
Okay, I'm sorry.
But, it's fine. Let's just
jump
skip
back
through
into their
this.
discography.
Let's skip through this. So we have All That You Can't Leave Behind, which is like 2000 or 1998. It's something like that.
Yeah.
And that album is them going back, I think, to what really their origin story is. They step away from being experimental and being weird like art pop music, and they go back to being like a 4-piece rock band. I think this tour also sells out like record-selling numbers in the United States and in the UK. Can't remember exactly, but it's a big tour. It's the introduction of the weird shape stage thing that they do.
Mm-hmm.
And then they have, How to Dismantle an Atomic Bomb, which is 2004 or 2003. Can't remember which. November
title.
2004. But yeah, this album is incredible. It came out when I was in the peak of my impressionability on music and taste.
It was a Steve Lillywhite production, which there's two, as I understand it, two primary producers with U2. Steve Lillywhite, who was there from the beginning. I think he produced their first 4 albums, and then they worked with Daniel Lanois a lot. And
Brian Eno.
Yeah, and Brian Eno. Okay, three Brian Eno. Who's ever heard of that guy, though?
I only know the name.
Yeah. Well, like he's done a lot of important work
No,
in
hardly.
the genre rock. But I think that's just interesting that you said getting back to their roots and that it is a Steve Lillywhite produced album.
That's a good point. Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I never really, connected the dots like that. But for sure, I think U2 fans were really happy about this album coming out because they felt like, oh, finally we're back to normal, no bullshit. And then they followed up with How to Dismantle an Atomic Bomb, which truly is like, I mean, it might be their best album in some ways. Like every song on it is pretty solid. There's no weak links. The tour that backed it up was incredible. They were still performing very well.
Yeah, they're doing the fucking thing.
Yeah,
for sure.
They were definitely in the groove. And then in 2006? No.
What, No Line on the Horizon?
I think No Line on the Horizon comes out in like 2008, right? 2009.
Yeah.
There it is. Yeah, it had been like 5 years between albums, and it was one of the longest waiting periods.
Yeah. I think in the later albums though, they notably spend a long time on all of them.
Yeah.
They're not it's not like they're just not working, like taking much of time off. They're just spending a bunch of time in the studio, I think, coming up with songs.
Well, and the one thing I do know about No Line on the Horizon, just from watching interviews with the Edge and stuff, is that I think it was a very stop-start time for them. They started sessions and stopped sessions, and Edge had like hundreds of ideas for songs, but nothing was really getting accepted by the group or like moving forward. And I think there was a period of time where they were just like not exactly sure what to do, or what the album should be. And I think they put a lot of their like writing on hold until they like figured it out, which was the first time that they weren't just like full time in the studio trying to write songs like together 8 hours a day. I know at this point Edge is like in Dublin and Bono is somewhere else, so they're not like they're not communicating person to person. And then they have the 360 tour, which
very important tour. It's very notable, especially if you're an industry insider like us. The 360 tour changed a lot of things about modern music.
Holy shit.
And
I mean, like, without 360, do you think, I mean, in a way, yes, obviously we'd still be having massive stadium tours because they always existed before this too.
They broke real ground here. And this was I've never confirmed this was true, but I heard it from someone I knew in Nashville when I was living down there. But people think it's called the 360 tour because of the 360 stage, but it was actually the first 360 deal for a tour, which is what record companies now primarily do, which is a 360 tour, where they take basically earnings from everything, not only record sales, but ticket sales and merch sales and all this stuff. And there's some sort of, I think if you're a U2, it worked for them because they got more from the record company or something. But for other bands, the 360 deal can be a little bit nefarious
not because
sometimes.
The thing went all the way around the stage?
I imagine... I had trouble believing him because I was like, that was just a coincidence. It was also a 360
That's
stage.
Crazy.
But he was like, no, it was the first 360 tour where record companies had this different deal.
Okay.
Yeah. That's unconfirmed.
The more you know.
But it's sick to just spout about stuff you
have
don't
no
know
idea.
too well on a podcast.
Well, I'm going to join you there and chime in on some shit that I don't know what I'm saying, but I did go to this 360 tour, so I feel qualified to talk about it.
Yeah.
The thing that blew my mind the most about the 360 tour was that in the middle, so it's like this thing with four arms, right? It looks like a giant insect that's like over the stage. Yeah. And then in the middle of it, there's like a screen, but the screen is made of like a fuckload of just tiny panels, and they can all stretch away from each other and like drop down, drop up. Some of them can be up here, some of them can be down here. So there were some songs where like the entire stage was just shrouded by this screen and you like couldn't really see what was going on the stage. And there were some songs where it was fully pulled back, so the stage appearance was just like completely different. And then you can kind of see in the picture right there what I'm talking about. The screen is like fully dropped down over the stage, so like there's just you can't really see the stage at all.
So sick.
And then they had like freaking laser beams and shit like pointing everywhere. So it was interactive.
that
Like
line
the audience is like literally enveloped by parts of this stage setup.
That is pretty incredible. Look at that line array, dude. That's such a monster PA system.
Look at it. It's so many fucking speakers. But yeah, so this tour was crazy, and I think this is really where they start to like delve into kind of being a hits band, or hits and deep cuts to their credit, but playing older songs in their discography where it's like, what do the fans want to actually hear? What is what's like the point of a stadium tour really, if not just playing all your hugest songs combined with songs that you think your fans would like to hear the most. So I did appreciate this tour because they started bringing out some songs that they hadn't played for a while necessarily. But overall, like, I mean, they were supposed to be supporting No Line on the Horizon, and I think they played like 2 songs from that album, which just goes to show the decline in their focus on producing, in my mind at least, producing like solid studio works.
So I think this is a good place to stop. We touched on Songs of Innocence. Not stop entirely, but I want to ask you what your favorite U2 song is. Like, if someone asked you that, could you pick one out?
I don't think I could pick a favorite U2 song, to be honest. I think... Oh, man. It wouldn't be like any of the typical songs you would expect. It would be probably... Man, it might... Well... It might be like Beautiful Day or like Elevation just because every time I hear it, it puts me back to
Beautiful Day is such a great
literally
song.
being a kid. It reminds me of being a child. Not to have too much backstory here or like, steal this whole show, but my dad was in radio when I was growing up, and a big thing for him, I think a big thing for him was bringing me to the studio once I was old enough to like really understand what was happening. And I remember I was in the studio one day. He was doing a segment where he was talking on the air, and I was able to talk on the air with him too. We just did like a goofy little interview where he's like, who are you?
That's
like,
cute.
what are you doing?
That's awesome.
It was really fun. And I'm like, I don't remember much from my childhood, but I literally remember that like it was yesterday.
Yeah, for sure.
And then at the end of the interview, he let me pick a song, and I picked Beautiful Day.
That's
it
dope.
started coming over the speakers.
Yeah.
And I was just like, fuck
I
yeah.
have the
Like,
power.
I'm the fucking man.
Made this happen.
So for reasons like that, it would be probably a song like Beautiful Day or one of those
answer.
nostalgia hitters. Yeah, what about you?
That's great. I also have unusual selections. 2 always stand out in my minds. First is Gloria. I think if I was hard pressed, I'd say Gloria is my favorite
It's
U2
an
song.
excellent song.
I love the riff. I love the production. I love Bono's vocals. And second is Bullet the Blue Sky.
Dude, the drums, the drum part and the production on Bullet the Blue Sky is like otherworldly.
And Bullet the Blue Sky was always the song I anticipated most for my dad's Tribute 2 sets. Because there's that amazing spoken word part over the middle of it. Outside is America. Outside is America.
Okay.
And Shane would kill it. And
My dad used to do this thing when that part would play on that song because his favorite part of the song was when Bono would go there peeling down the dollar bills and slapping them down. 100, 200. My dad would go crazy for that shit.
It's amazing. It would crush live every single time with Tribute 2. And I just looked forward to it. Every performance they had, every set. And I'd recite the whole spoken word part with him. And those so if I'm hard pressed, Gloria, but Gloria and Bullet the Blue Sky, definitely. And then Beautiful Day, Elevation, New Year's Day, Vertigo, all the hits, man.
I mean, like, okay, so because I think I have a very special spot in my heart for How to Dismantle an Atomic Bomb, there's songs like City of Blinding Lights and Miracle Drug, which if I'm digging deep, like not to like cheese it out too hard, but those are really songs that I think made me really feel shit for the first time when I was like, holy fuck.
I just thought about Bono singing City of Blinding Lights.
That song made me feel like mystical. Yeah,
totally.
like it made me truly feel like uplifted in a lot of ways where I was like, wow, like I didn't know shit could be like necessarily as powerful. And like,
I'm sorry.
No.
I did not mean to interrupt. Keep going.
I was just going to say Miracle Drug is about his dead dad. So whatever.
Whatever. It's fucking just gay as fuck.
Stupid shit.
I neglected to mention it in that list, Where the Streets Have No Name. That's one that makes me feel shit for some reason.
Okay, so since we're here right now, let's go ahead. Let's go ahead
watch
and
the Streets video.
Let's watch part of this.
This was my request.
So I wanted to talk about not only favorite U2 songs, but also favorite U2 music videos, because I don't know about you, but U2 music videos were like kind of a weird cornerstone of growing up for me, along with their songs. Like
Vertigo was the first music video I became obsessed with.
You're like, holy shit.
Yeah, I was like, whoa, music videos are cool. And it was like one I would wake up every morning and put on MTV before school.
Yeah.
Watch the music videos. I was pumped.
Well, and in like a
Vertigo
nerdy way too,
on.
being like, in this video, Edge has hair, so it's like, holy shit.
Yeah.
Edge has like long, flowing, beautiful hair, and then watching videos where they're like slightly older, and it's like, okay, so now Edge is bald.
He wears
Larry's got this going on. Bono's got that going on. It was good to just see like what they were looking like.
Yeah. But
okay, so yeah, let's watch some of this.
Yeah,
I'll go to like right here. So there we have young Bono.
Dude, Bono looks absolutely gorgeous. Holy shit, dude. He looks so good.
He looks like an elegant woman.
So does the Edge. Man, they all look amazing.
And I said this earlier, but like, since we're just drawing weird parallels to the Beatles, like,
oh yeah, totally, rooftop
this
performance.
is just like a straight ripoff of the Beatles, and
yeah,
I think they actually got permission to do this, but I don't know. Either way, they just ripped off the Beatles, and everyone fucking loved it. Oh man.
And then the music video is really just about the making of the music video.
Yeah, it's just all commentary on what's happening while we're actually watching it happen. Look at that. Damn it. I'm going to pause at least once when we can see
it is good
Adam's
people
nipples.
Watching.
Yeah, it's crazy. I don't know, like,
I love
you
that
couldn't
black
do
strat.
this. You couldn't do this today, like.
No.
And even if you found a place where you could get on a rooftop and make a fuckload of noise, I feel like there's not a group.
Was it a Snoop Dogg song that they did on a rooftop in LA? Because I remember, I agree with you, U2 ripping off the Beatles, but then I think it was a Snoop Dogg music video
do this too?
where they. Yeah, but that one was even more riotous than this one. Like, they had to shut down the production several times. People were going crazy. I think they performed at like the top of a gas station.
Oh man,
I can't remember what song. It's I think it's Snoop Dogg.
Well, okay, so I guess since we're here, I don't actually remember because I haven't watched this in so long. This isn't actually live audio, right? Is this actually them like live?
I don't think so.
Yeah, no, it's just the studio.
Good, yeah.
So did they record this video while they were in the studio?
No, they're just lip syncing.
It's just
I
like
think
a one-off.
Yeah,
it's just a one-off.
They're lip syncing, and
because I'm just noticing they're all playing like shitty instruments.
There's nothing shitty about that black Strat, dude.
I mean, the Strat's gorgeous, but like, look at Larry's drums. He's got like a timbale for
it's a dark
rack-tom.
sunburst. It's not black. He does play a black Strat at some point, I think, though, in his career. But yeah.
There's not a band that I think this many people would absolutely freak out about these days.
No.
Like Taylor Swift, maybe? Yeah. There's enough people that would freak out if Taylor Swift did this.
Just Machine Gun Kelly on a rooftop.
That sounds like a good way to get people to fucking commit mass suicide.
Yeah.
Look at his shirt. Oh man, how did he like somehow manage to drop a button from the beginning to now?
Yeah.
When did he find the time? He literally looks like a beautiful woman.
He does, dude. Bono's
He's such
the
a
best looking guy ever.
He's such an elegant figure.
And like as beautiful as he is here, I almost like short-haired, sunglasses, suit wearing Bono even more with a little bit of stubble. Like,
so like
he's so sexy.
From 2004 to 2009, when he like went from having like the long slick back hair to like the shaved head, like the big old fucking head.
Yeah.
My mom like swore off U2 because he got a haircut. She was
really?
like,
Oh,
he
no.
looks like shit now. Like I can't do it. I can't look at him.
I like it. I like that he looks like a dude,
His
a
head's
man.
so fucking large. Okay,
Yeah.
so I wanted to do my favorite.
The Sweetest Thing's a great.
I want to do my favorite U2 music video, which is the song "Sweetest Thing."
Video.
Okay, so the backstory here, I don't know if this is true, but this is what my mom told me a long time ago, is that he wrote this song because he like made his wife mad about something and he was like apologizing to her. So apparently this is like his actual wife, and he like sits her down and doesn't tell her what's happening, and then this is what's going on. And yeah, he looks like a fucking
Dude, he looks insane here.
Oh,
I don't know
man.
about this look.
he looks like he should have like a rap career. He looks like Elvis Costello.
Yeah, he does look like Elvis Costello. I love Elvis Costello. Yeah, he does look like Elvis Costello.
He really does.
Yeah, fuck.
I think they were probably hanging out.
Probably.
I think the reason why this is my favorite U2 video also is just because how fascinated I was by the shooting of it. Like it's a one shot from start to finish. They do it all in one shot. And it's just done so well. Like it's so smooth. Also, this song's fucking great.
This is a great song.
There's the boys.
Dude.
You got Larry fucking driving.
Yeah. It's so dope that Edge is just an Irish dude who had a handlebar mustache and wore a cowboy hat for so many years.
He's like the reason why I like want handlebar mustaches now.
Yeah.
Like I see him in my mind.
I've been very tempted to wear a cowboy hat many times in my life. Luckily, I've not given in to the temptation, but
I'll go ahead a little bit, but
this is great.
it just builds. There's more and more shit. So there's like floats, there's a parade. There's the fire department and they're all shirtless. It gets really out there. Yeah, he fucked up.
I'm really, really sorry. What'd he do?
I don't know. I literally don't know what maybe he like forced her to get an abortion and then he's like, I'm sorry.
What a guess. God. I have a feeling that wasn't it.
We're taking guesses here. So yeah, this video, granted, this is going to seem now like I just spent so much time being like wildly obsessed with YouTube videos. It wasn't really like that. But I did watch this video a decent bit as a kid with my parents.
I'm sure I've seen that because it is tickling some sort of memory.
And
Bono
this,
in that hat.
I wanted to just shout this video out because it's fantastic. Have you ever seen this video?
Yeah, I have.
The only part, let's see if I can find it with the scrolly. Yeah, this part where they're like rubbing their feet on his face.
Yeah.
I was emotionally scarred by this as a kid. I watched this and I was just like, but why? Like, why is this happening? What's going on? Who would want this? Like, what message is this sending? And this song, too, is just like, on top of everything, it's so weird.
Whose hand is that? Oh my god, dude. What the hell?
Yeah, and then there's this chick here. Oh, this is like
Wow, she is hot.
I got like wickedly turned on by this when I was a little kid. I was like, whoa, I can feel attracted to a woman.
And not just the Edge and Bono.
Like when Edge was getting his fucking face rubbed down by some feet, I was weirdly turned on, but also
Are you into
mortified.
feet stuff?
No, I think this is why I'm not, because I saw this
'cause
and
you're
I was just like,
mortified.
why?
Yeah.
Why is this going down right now? What's the fucking point? Who is this for? But yeah, I don't know. He looks like he's thinking the same thing there too. So
It doesn't look thrilled.
I think that's the point.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Well, thanks for that.
No, thank you. I'm going to go deep on YouTube music videos here soon.
Yeah, I think for some reason it's just
I always
weirdly it's just they were always entertaining in ways that most music videos were just like cheesy and stupid.
Yeah. I always defer to live YouTube performances. I've watched so many YouTube concerts on
I definitely
YouTube.
have been there too.
Yeah. Bro, I'm just realizing what time it is. I could literally do this all night.
Yeah,
But I probably
think-
should get going soon.
I
We covered
think
a lot of ground. What do you want to close
We're
out
almost
on?
at a good stopping
Yeah.
point. All right, so we talked about favorite song, favorite video. We kind of briefly touched on the downfall of U2, just the point which they started sucking. Obviously, we did kind of touch on the fact that they put that album on everyone's iPhone. There's an article here. I can't remember which one it is. Oh, I think it's this one. This Salon article that came out around that time.
Yeah, how they became the most I
Specifically,
remember this.
This is specifically about how people decided that they hate U2 more than any other band in America.
Wait, what does she say about post 9/11?
Just because
all that you can't leave behind gave the group renewed relevance post 9/11. Okay.
now they're an internet punchline. Wow, you really got them. Yeah, this whole article is just about how the world hated them specifically
one
because
thing
of
to
they
say to this
decided to put
author.
their fucking album on everyone's iPhones.
Yeah.
Which, yeah, it was a mistake. No one was happy about it, but
But
that's not why
delete
they're
it,
the most.
dude.
That's not why they're the most hated band in America. Which I don't even know if they are.
That's not why they are. Yeah. I don't think they are.
I think
think
if
it's
they
so
were, it would
firmly
be because they
Nickelback.
just kind of suck now. It's not because
Yeah.
the iPhone thing. I think people kind of forgot about
I
that.
think that South Park episode was pretty. I actually meant to add the South Park episode to the spread to the notes here. I think that was pretty detrimental to Bono's reputation.
His like street cred.
yeah, street cred.
All right, so I did have as a bullet point on here. How do you feel about Bono these days? Which we don't have to go deep into that, but are you still? Is he still like the man to you?
Yeah, he's the man.
Okay.
I do not flounder on my love for Bono.
Okay.
Never have I. Never will I. I was disappointed to. No, I'm gonna backtrack. I liked that he showed some. I liked that he said he hated his singing voice and himself and didn't like U2. I was like really affected by it that day. I was like, oh man, not even Bono can be like happy with himself. But now, some hindsight,
think it was
with some
cool?
days behind it, I think it's cool. I like that.
All right. Well, I disagree politely. I kind of think I agree with Bono in some ways.
I just think it's sick to be in one of.
It just took him 40 years to gain self-awareness.
Yeah.
10 years ago, he was like, I'm the fucking guy.
I'm the best,
I'm the
yeah.
fucking man.
Yeah.
I'm number one. All right,
Like,
so
maybe I was douchey sometimes.
maybe the sunglasses were a bit much.
Yeah.
Should I tell everyone the glaucoma
Yeah.
thing is a lie?
Maybe it was insane that I met Obama wearing sunglasses inside
And
the
Bush.
Oval Office.
Multiple
and Bush.
presidents.
Yeah.
Oh man. All right. Well, so yeah, I think that covers that pretty nicely. If U2 announced, like, obviously they're doing this new album,
Yeah,
which is
Songs of Surrender.
reworks of old songs.
Uh-huh.
But if they did announce a tour and they did come through,
Oh,
what
yeah.
would be the plan?
Oh, yeah,
You're
for
going?
sure, yeah.
Okay.
I would spend a lot of money.
Are you
on YouTube
expecting? Are you okay with just hits? Is that what you want at
I'd
this
be
point?
equally happy if they played the well, I guess it's just reworks of new songs. Or of old songs. What I've been saying, they wouldn't have new material.
Yeah, there's
to play.
no new shit.
Yeah, so it would have to be hits.
If anything, it's going to be like dumbed down versions of their old songs.
Yeah, Bono's version.
Bono's
Like Taylor's version.
All right, cool. And then
Would you go?
Yeah, well, it depends.
Can we go together?
Yeah, it depends.
Yeah.
I wanted to go to the Joshua Tree thing, but just because I liked Joshua Tree decently, but I haven't been interested by anything they've done before that really, and
Yeah.
I'm not that interested in the concept of Songs for Surrender either. I think to be honest, I'm not interested in reworks of songs. I think that's lazy and cheap.
Yeah,
and
I hear
kind
you.
of bullshit. Like
I think
just
we have to
write
read
new
the
songs.
book though. You and I both have to read the book that Bono released.
Yeah.
Called Surrender.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll provide some context.
The cover,
We'll get a deeper
the cover of it
appreciation.
is so bad.
Yeah,
like
dude.
let's see if I can Google the cover. All right, but then okay, so let's close on this. What is your favorite U2 album, and then we'll say what is the best U2 album.
Okay, I think I'm gonna default to kind of what I was pointing at earlier, which was my favorite U2 album is War. Yeah, dude, that is rough. Bono loves shit like that. He loves zoomed up.
Oh man, it's like, dude.
Yeah, I feel like that was him being
Whatever.
like, see, I wasn't always a sex icon.
But he's
One
literally
point, but he
making
looks
like
still so
he's
hot.
literally making like his bricked up, ready to
I
plow
know.
face.
And they drew the earring on him. Anyways, yeah, I'm gonna say War is my favorite U2 album, and I'm gonna say the best U2 album is Joshua Tree.
Okay. I would say I agree that Joshua Tree would be their best or their most important. I think my favorite's probably Octung Baby or
Yeah.
Zeropa. It's just like they're the only albums that I can still really listen to that I don't get weird feelings about or perceive like gimmickiness from. And mostly it's just from Bono. Like, yes, the songs are simple in general and shit, and the complexity comes from other stuff besides like the playing, but they're all fantastic songs. And then there's Bono, who's just like, you know, this fucking guy.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think my relationship with the music has changed over the years. Don't get me wrong. I still love like of the vast majority of it, but Octung Baby still truly like excites me, where I'm like, I get inspired by it when I listen to it. So
Yeah. I'm gonna listen to Pop and Octung Baby.
I'm gonna listen to War.
Yeah. Yeah. If you have time, listen to Boy too.
I think
and October. But
Boy
and War.
Boy is like the early U2 album that I know the best.
Yeah.
I love Boy. I think it is. I would have said it was my favorite, except that it's been so long since I truly listened to it. But
Yeah.
oh man, it is so good.
I was so moved listening to it. I was like, fuck, this is so good. Dude.
Yeah.
This is amazing. Yeah. Good ep, dude.
Hell yeah.
That was fun.
Which of these cameras is still on?
These two. Right here. The GoPro and the iPhone are still on.
Oh, that's the GoPro that died?
Yeah.
Okay.
The good GoPro is still alive.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
That's all that matters.
I got it hooked up to the battery pack.
Cool. Sick, dude.
All right, dude. First live pod. We did it.
First live pod done in the books. We should do the next one about Hitler.
Good night, everybody.